Let me give you the approach you need to really pay attention to here. So we're speaking about 8822, right? So I want you to look on the screen here. So 8822 is pretty straightforward. It's about change of address. And so this applies for all kinds of forms, tax forms, individual, gift, estate, or generation skip and transfer tax returns. So part one, I want you to look right now on the screen. So part one, you basically have to specify which individual income tax returns you are talking about. So Form 1040, 1040 SR, or 1040 NR. So this applies to us. So basically, we check that box here. If your last return was a joint return and you are now establishing a residence separate from the spouse with whom you file that return, click there. But this does not apply to our case, so we did not click it. And so if we move to 3 because 2 does not apply to us. This is not a gift, estate, or generation skip and transfer tax return. And so you put your name, you put your social security number. You do the same for your wife or husband. Okay, so this is one of those things where it must be the filer's name and also the filer's spouse's name. Okay. And if you had a prior name, you just have to put that here. And in our case, this was not applicable, so we did not actually fill anything there. Same thing for the spouse. If the spouse actually changed their name in the past, you have to put that. And if you had an old address, you have to put your old address, and you have to put your city, the city, the zip, the street, everything. And so if your spouse also had an old address, you have to put that. And this is on line 6B. So 6A is on your old address, and 6B is for your spouse's old address. And your new address, you have to put it on 7. So line 7, that's where you put your new address, so everything is clear there. And I'm showing you now the part 2, signature. So you don't forget to actually put a daytime telephone number of the person to contact if there is any question. We always advise, it is optional, but we always advise you to have that. So you put your signature and your spouse's signature, and also if you have a representative, put the title of that representative there. So it's pretty straightforward. And one thing I want to show you right now on the screen here is that you have in future developments and when do you have to file actually this form 8822. You can see where to say where to file. The address depends on the states where you're actually applying from. By the way, boss, welcome back to the show. It's really a pleasure to have you here. Make yourself comfortable. You are going to enjoy today's conversation. Let's talk about the Form 8822 itself. I mean, let's go back to the origins, if you will. So, what is it really? So, IRS Form 8822 is it's officially titled the change of address. As the title says, you use it to inform the IRS of your new mailing address. And so, if the IRS needs to send you documents like notices or paper refund checks, they will use the address from your most recent tax return. If you haven't told them that you have moved, you might miss this important documents. This is why you should keep tax officials updated on your mailing address. And the thing is that when we talk about the IRS, we are giving you a similar piece of advice also for state tax authorities. In other words, state or county or city tax authorities. You want to keep all tax authorities abreast of your developments, okay? And the IRS mailing address on file doesn't necessarily need to be your home address, as long as it is an address where you regularly receive mail. So if you're self-employed and need to change your business address, you can report the change with Form 882B. So basically, and this is totally possible, you can have a virtual mailbox and that will handle everything for you anyway. So this is totally possible. Now, why is it important to submit an IRS change of address form? Well, obviously you do not want to miss any important documentation. The form IRS Form 8822 plays a vital role in maintaining effective communication between taxpayers and the IRS. So failing to update your address with the IRS can have serious consequences. If the IRS cannot contact you due to an outdated address, you may miss important notices, bills, or communications regarding your tax obligations. Remember, you are obligated to actually pay your taxes, and you have to respond to the IRS no matter what. And so if you do not respond, this could lead to a series of unfavorable outcomes, including the accumulation of penalties and interest on unpaid taxes, the issuance of tax liens or levies, or even the initiation of legal actions. So it is essential to promptly update your address with the IRS to ensure that you stay updated by your tax status and prevent any potential financial and legal complications. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you of today's topic. We are having a conversation about the Form 8822. So let's talk about how to actually fill out this Form 8822 and e-sign it, because it is possible to e-sign it, not a problem. So basically, this is a pretty straightforward process in terms of filling out this form. You want to download the form. So the IRS provides Form 8822 as a PDF document on its official website, so irs.gov. And so you want to locate and download the form to your computer. And you want to open the form with PDF editing software and use PDF editing software like Adobe Acrobat or another third-party app to open the downloaded Form 8822 on your computer and ensure that you have the latest version of Acrobat for optimal compatibility. Okay. And you want to fill in your information. I think I just showed you on the screen what you have to do. So once the form is open, you can start entering your updated information, and the PDF form actually provides fields to type in your details, such as your name, your old address, your new address, and any other required information. You saw the way I did it like a couple of minutes ago. You just need to follow the step-by-step instructions provided within the PDF to ensure accurate completion. And so once you're done, everything is straightforward. You want to e-sign the form. And so after entering all the necessary information, you can fill and sign the PDF documents within Adobe Acrobat online services. And then print and mail the form. Pretty straightforward. Now, one thing I want to make sure that you say is that you have to actually go over all the form once again, like the old address and the new address, to make sure everything is clean. And so once you have completed the e-signature process, you want to print out the filled and signed Form 8822. Ensure that all the information is legible and accurate. Then mail the printed form to the IRS using the address provided in the instructions. It is essential that you keep a copy of the filled form for your records. You never know, right? And it's one of those things where, as of now, though, Form 8822 cannot be filed electronically, so you can only do it manually. But you can actually print everything. You can do everything manually. I mean, you can do everything electronically, rather, but you just cannot file it. Okay, but hey, it is what it is. And by the way, if you have moved recently and are not able to file taxes on time, be sure to also look at Form 4868 extension of time. And one thing I want to say here is that when we talk about obtaining the latest version of Form 8822, things are pretty straightforward. I mean, you have a few options. The simplest and most convenient way is to actually visit the official website of the IRS. That's what I said before. Okay, and so once you are on the site, just there is actually a search feature. Just type Form 8822 in the search bar, and the relevant form will appear in the search results, and you can then download the form in PDF format directly from the IRS website. And the thing is that there is a difference, if you will, between the 8822 and 8822B. This is one of those things. I think I said it a little earlier, but I want to insist on that again. I mean, you can use IRS Form 8822B to change the address of your business. So regular Form 8822 is for your personal address and maybe your spouse's address, but 8822B is for a business. So one thing I want to say here is that the IRS has a separate Form 8822B, and so Form 8822B is intended for businesses and organizations to notify the IRS of, let's say, any changes in their mailing address or responsible party information. And so this form allows companies to update their address with the IRS and ensure they receive important communications, notices, and correspondence related to their tax obligations. And so if you need to change the address for your business, it is essential to use the correct form, Form 8822B, to ensure the IRS has accurate and up-to-date information regarding your business's location. And but if you were to file, now the question is, what if you are a sole proprietorship? If you're a sole proprietorship, you file Form 8822. If you are a single member LLC, you file for Form 8822 or Form 8822B, depending upon the configuration of your single member LLC, because you can be a single member LLC filing as an S corporation or a C corporation. Okay, so everything depends on your configuration. By the way, boss, I want to quickly remind you, today's topic, we are having a conversation about Form 8822. Now, when we talk about Form 8822, especially when it comes to negotiating, I mean, not negotiating, notifying the IRS, you need to understand that the IRS is not the only responsible party that you may want to notify. You know, if you change your address before filing your return, enter your new address on your return when you file. When your return is processed, the IRS will update your records. Be also sure to notify your tax preparer. And what about notifying the post office also? So if you change your address after filing your return, you should notify the post office that services your old address, because not all post offices forward government checks. Notifying the post office that services your old address ensure that your mail will be forwarded, but not necessarily your refund check. And also by form, to change your address, you can go through 8822 or 8822B. And one thing I want to say here is that you can actually, you can use Form 8820. Sorry about this. Let me just drink some water here. Yeah, you can use Form 8822 to notify the IRS if you changed your home mailing address. If this change also affects the mailing address for your children who filed income tax returns, you need to complete and file a separate Form 8822 for each child. This is kind of cool in terms of your ability to get things done. And if you are a representative signing for the taxpayer, attach to Form 8822 a copy of your power of attorney. And generally, based on our experience, it takes 4 to 6 weeks. In some cases, it might take a little longer, like 7 weeks or 8 weeks, to process the change of address, depending upon the backlog that the IRS has at the time that you actually send the form. And so one thing I want to say here is that it's important to really do things a lot faster. But if you can use tax software to kind of help you out. It's just that you will not be able to mail it. I mean, to mail the form, you just need to you cannot mail the form electronically here, but you'll be able to mail it like manually through snail mail. And but you can prepare everything through the software and then mail it afterwards through a snail mail. That's for sure. One thing I want to say here is that when we talk about Form 8822, we are speaking about how things are changing at the federal level, right? Because you are changing the address, but you have to also make sure that you actually fill out the corresponding form at the state level. So you have to notify also the state authorities that you are changing your address. You have to do this individually, but also at the business level. So when you have to look at your particular state and see the equivalent of your state of the 8822 at your state level, or the 8822B at the state level. One thing I need to say that some states are kind of different in terms of how they have their rules, and it's one of those things where you have to make sure that you have a situation that works for you, especially when you are in several states. What does that mean? It means that you probably were right. If you have a scenario hypothetically, right, where you are working in one state, you are living in another state, and you are actually like doing business in a third state, then you have a constellation of states that are inquired, and you have to notify those state tax authorities, all of them. If you're changing your address, whatever address you're changing, whether it is your business address or your home address or your any other address you have to notify the authorities. And one thing I'm going to say here is that when we talk about Form 8822, the equivalent at the state level is important also, because in case you are receiving refunds, you want the refund to go to the proper address. If you're getting a refund from the state level, you want the refund to go to the proper address. Now, what we have seen here is that if things become a little complicated, too complicated for you, just get a virtual mailbox. A virtual mailbox, basically, you have a third party that's handling everything for you, and you just chill. In other words, you get your data, you get your address, you get your documents in time, and the virtual mailbox will basically receive your documentation, will scan it, and will email it to you. That way, you know, like in real time, what's really happening for you, what's really happening to you, and you can pick and choose what really works in your situation. One thing I want to say here is that you have to really understand that certain rules do not apply based on certain circumstances. So you have to make sure you meet the requirements. Let me give you a few pro tips before we close to this conversation. So when we talk about Form 8822, you need to really understand that your situation will really change. Your situation will depend upon your situation will change based on the circumstances. So Form 8822 is used to change your mailing address, the place where you receive your mail, right? Pretty straightforward, which can be different than the address of your permanent home. So if you're self-employed, that's what I was telling you earlier when I said you are a sole proprietorship or you are a single member LLC, you can use 8822B or 8822. And so filling out Form 8822 is pretty straightforward. You have to always mention the type of tax return you file: 1040, 1040 SR, 1040 NR, your old mailing address, your new mailing address. And it's one of those things where in some cases the IRS wants you to really understand that you have to file the form as soon as possible. I mean, there is no deadline really, there's no deadline in terms of you have to file this by April 15th or March 15th or what have you. No, as soon as you have the info, you notify the IRS right away. Okay, and basically under the law, you are deemed to have received anything the IRS sends to your last known address. This means that the IRS doesn't have to give you additional time to respond to a letter demanding that you pay additional tax, for example, just because you forgot to update your mailing address after you moved. This is your responsibility. It is your responsibility to make sure that you comply with the tax laws, and tax laws want you to really provide the right info to the authorities. So bottom line here is that what you want to file Form 8822 as soon as possible. Just keep in mind, you cannot file this form electronically. You have to file this form manually, and the address depends on the specific location where you currently are, and every state is linked to a different IRS branch, and it's one of those things where it's just a lot better to do things electronically and then file manually. I mean, you prepare the whole thing. You use the tax software such as TurboTax, H&R Block, Jackson Hewitt, just to prepare everything. But when you file, you actually just have to make sure that you do things manually. Thank you so much for your attention. I really appreciate it. Let me do a quick recap here. So in today's conversation, I was just talking to you about Form 8822. So I gave you the approach, the pro tips, and now the recap. Thank you so much. God bless you. I'll see you next time. Until then, remember, stay marvelous.